The auctioneer's hammer came down with a sharp crack that echoed across the dusty courthouse steps, and in that instant, Caleb Hart's life shifted in a way he could never have predicted. The crowd began to disperse, boots scuffing against dirt and gravel, voices rising and falling as men argued over missed chances and women gathered their shawls against the wind. Caleb remained where he stood, hat pulled low, eyes fixed on the papers now in his hand. The ranch was his. $1 and a mountain of debt no one else wanted. A forgotten spread on the edge of the territory, half burned, half abandoned, whispered about in saloons as cursed land. He had come for land, not hope, not miracles, just soil to work and a place to start over. Caleb had learned long ago not to expect kindness from the world. The West had taught him that lesson with scars on his hands and memories he never spoke aloud. After the war, he had drifted from job to job, cowhand, fence builder, freight escort, never staying long enough to plant roots. When word spread of a ranch going for almost nothing because its owner had died without heirs and no one wanted the trouble, Caleb felt something stir. Trouble he understood. Loneliness, too. What he didn't understand was why he felt uneasy the moment he folded the deed and tucked it into his coat. The ride to the ranch took most of the afternoon. The sun slid low, turning the plains copper and gold, and the wind carried the smell of sage and dry grass. As Caleb crested the final rise, the land opened before him. Fences sagged like tired old men. The barn leaned, its red paint faded to a sickly pink. The house stood farther back, a two-story structure with a wide porch and shuttered windows that looked like closed eyes. It was bigger than he expected, and that alone made him slow his horse. Big things cost more to fix. Big things hid secrets. He dismounted at the gate and stood there for a long moment, listening. No cattle lowed. No chickens scratched. Just the wind and the creak of wood. Caleb led his horse inside and tied him to the post near the porch. As he climbed the steps, a strange sensation prickled the back of his neck, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. He reached for the door, then froze when it swung open before his hand touched the latch. A woman stood there. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. She was tall, her posture straight despite the wary tension in her shoulders. Dark hair spilled loose down her back, catching the light in a way that made it seem almost alive. Her dress was simple but clean, the kind worn by someone who worked hard and cared little for show. And her eyes, startled, bright, and unmistakably furious, locked onto his. "Who are you?" she demanded. Caleb's mouth opened, then closed. He had expected empty rooms, dust, maybe a family of raccoons. He had not expected this. "Name's Caleb Hart," he said finally. "I bought this place today." Her expression flickered, anger giving way to disbelief. "Bought it?" she echoed. "That's not possible." He pulled the folded papers from his coat and held them out, feeling absurd, like a boy caught trespassing. "Auction in town," he said. "Went for $1. The woman stared at the deed as though it were written in another language. Slowly, she shook her head. "There must be some mistake," she said, her voice quieter now. "This is my home." The words hit him harder than he expected. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it. "I didn't know anyone was still here." She laughed then, a sharp, humorless sound. "No one ever does," she said. "That's how it's always been." She turned and walked back into the house, leaving the door open. Caleb hesitated, then followed, drawn by equal parts curiosity and a sense of responsibility he hadn't asked for. Inside, the house smelled faintly of soap and wood smoke. Furniture sat where it had always sat, worn but cared for. A kettle rested on the stove, still warm. "I'm Clara," she said, stopping near the table. "Clara Whitmore." The name rang a faint bell. "Whitmore?" Caleb asked. "The man who owned this place." "My husband," she said, chin lifting. "Or he was." Caleb felt his stomach tighten. "I heard he passed." "He did," Clara said. 3 months ago." Silence stretched between them, thick with things unsaid. Caleb removed his hat, fingers worrying the brim. "I wouldn't have bid if I'd known," he said. "Truly." She studied him, searching his face for something. Whatever she saw made her sigh. "The law doesn't care what we know or don't know," she said. "Elias's name was on the deed. When he died without family, the land reverted. I tried to stop it, but," she trailed off, gesturing vaguely. "Here we are." Caleb leaned against the table, exhaustion seeping into his bones. "I don't aim to throw you out," he said. "I just don't know what else to do." Neither did she. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the floor, they talked. Or rather, they circled each other with words, careful and guarded. Clara told him how she and Elias had come west with dreams bigger than their means. How drought and illness had taken their toll. How she had buried her husband alone on a rise overlooking the creek. Caleb listened, his chest aching in a way he didn't recognize. When night fell, Caleb offered to sleep in the barn. Clara refused. "There's a guest room," she said. "The house is big enough for ghosts and strangers both." He slept poorly, the bed unfamiliar, the ceiling creaking as the wind rose. At dawn, he woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of movement downstairs. For a moment, he wondered if the woman from the porch had been a dream. Then he dressed and went down to find Clara at the stove, sleeves rolled up, hair braided back. "Morning," she said, without turning. "Morning," he replied. They ate in companionable silence. Afterward, Caleb went outside to walk the land. Clara followed at a distance, arms folded. The soil was dry but workable. The creek still ran. With enough sweat and time, the ranch could live again. The thought took root in him, fragile and stubborn. Days passed like that. An unspoken truce formed between them. Caleb fixed fences and patched the barn. Clara tended the small garden she'd coaxed into existence near the house. They spoke of practical matters, supplies, repairs, the coming winter, but avoided the larger question looming over them both. At night, Caleb lay awake listening to the house breathe, aware of Clara's presence down the hall, and hated himself for the warmth that thought brought him. Trouble came riding in on the fourth day. A trio of men appeared just after noon, dust-clouded and grinning. Their leader was a thick-necked fellow with cold eyes and a voice like gravel. He introduced himself as Mason Crow and claimed an interest in the ranch. "Heard it sold cheap," he said, eyes sliding over Clara in a way that made Caleb's hands curl into fists. "Seems a waste." Caleb stepped forward, placing himself between them. "Land's owned," he said. "Move along." Crow smiled, slow and ugly. "Ownership's a funny thing out here," he said. "Papers get lost. Folks disappear." Clara's face had gone pale, but her gaze was steady. "You have no claim here," she said. Crow tipped his hat, mockingly. "We'll see." They left as suddenly as they'd arrived, leaving fear in their wake. That night, Clara admitted she knew of Crow. He'd pressured Elias for the land before he died. The realization settled heavily between them. Caleb understood then why the ranch had gone for $1. Why no one wanted it. "I won't run," Clara said quietly. "Neither will I," Caleb replied. The next days were a blur of preparation. Caleb reinforced doors and windows. He showed Clara how to handle a rifle. She surprised him with her steady aim and fiercer resolve. In the evenings, as tension hummed through the air, they talked more freely, about where they'd come from, what they'd lost. Laughter found its way into the house, tentative at first, then stronger. On the seventh night, Crow returned with more men. The confrontation was swift and violent, gunfire cracking the silence, shattering windows. Caleb fought with a clarity born of desperation, protecting the house, the land, and the woman who had come to mean more to him than he was ready to admit. When it was over, Crow lay wounded and retreating, his threat broken for now. Dawn revealed the cost: damage, blood, exhaustion. But the ranch still stood. Clara stood on the porch beside Caleb, watching the light spread across the fields. Her hand found his, fingers trembling. "You didn't have to stay," she said. "I wanted to," he answered. In that moment, with the past behind them and the future uncertain, something unspoken passed between them. The ranch was more than land now. It was a promise. And though neither dared name it yet, both felt the pull of a life they might build together, forged in hardship, tempered by trust, and waiting, like the wide-open West itself, to be claimed.